if you make that jump and you go to pro, I can almost guarantee that you are going to learn so much. You're going to cook the best barbecue of your life because the pressure is going to be on you. You're going to make those decisions when you have to. And it just comes. Like it's so amazing at how inexperienced you think you are. And then you get in the heat of the moment and it just happens.
Welcome to the Pitmasters podcast. This is Rusty Monson.
I'm Anthony Lujan.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about backyard competition and going to backyard to pro competition. We got Mike Peay, and Jesse Johnson from Big Johnson's Barbecue. So stay with us. What's up, Anthony?
What up, Rusty?
Nothing. Chilling. Just got back from Colorado and got my butt kicked in the competition.
Well, that happens.
Yeah, it does, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
But so today we actually have a guest in with us today. His name's Mike Peay. We'll get with him in just a second. But right now, we kind of want to touch on our experiences with backyard. I'll start. That's where I started, was the backyard competition. I actually did a couple contests last year with Jesse Johnson, who we'll have on here a little bit later. And we did two. The first one, we didn't do so well. Actually, Mike's team beat us. He won the whole thing that year.
Nice. Good job, Mike.
And so he beat us that year. We took fifth place out of like, I want to say 9-10 people, but that fifth place was just the greatest thing. I was like, oh my gosh. And man, you might as well put a needle in my arm. I was done. So we had the next one already signed up. We went to the drawing board because we didn't like a couple things we did. And we ended up taking second place, just barely, to Quinn from, I don't remember his team name, but he just barely edged us out for first place that second time. And we kind of debated where we want to go pro and we wanted to stay backyard. A lot of people were saying stay backyard because it's cheaper. And I was like, I don't want to, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So I went out and got myself some Gateway drums and took a class and with getting basted and shake and bake and who do the Gateway drums. So did that class, came back, formed a team, hit the pro circuit, and we've been in that ever since. This is our first season pro. So talk a little bit about how you guys started.
Well, honestly, I did barbecue in my backyard for quite a bit, and then one day I was at a local barbecue restaurant, R&R Barbecue, and there's this flyer on the wall said, learn how to do competition barbecue. So I was like, all right, cool, $100. I'll go check it out. Went and took Rod and Roger's class and learned a little bit, and they asked me what my overall goal was, and I was like, to come and beat you guys. And they're like, yeah, right, that's never going to happen, right? So about 2 months later, I seen that the local barbecue pit stop was having a backyard competition, so I was like, let's do it. So I jumped in there, took second place in chicken and fifth place in ribs, and got a reserve on that cook. So, dude, I was hooked.
Barbecue Kids pit stop in Lehigh?
Nice. Yeah. Yep. So I did barbecue pit stop, and then we did the Smokin' Up Layton Hills up in Layton with Big Johnson's Barbecue, Great Western's barbecue events, and did another backyard there. Did pretty decent. Got a couple of calls, and then I just rolled about 3 or 4 more backyards, and I was like, I'm gonna make the jump. A lot of people told me not to. They're like, no, do another 2 seasons, dude. Just stay in there until you start consistently winning. And so didn't listen to him. I jumped pro, got whooped for the first season, got a couple of calls, but did not do that well. And then I just stayed with it, started getting some calls. So I'm my 4th year in now. I got a decent run this year. Not the greatest, but the best thing that I did pick up of it is I got to meet Salt City Barbecue. And
yeah, they're the greatest.
Yeah, they're all right.
They're legends. I've heard of them.
They got to win Rookie of the Year first.
Yeah, we do. Right. Well, cool. So we're going to bring in Mike now. So I know Mike from the backyard last year. He was doing a lot of the events and, he was doing a lot of the events and he, beat us, like I said, in our first competition. And, so then he was in the second. And at that time, he had already signed up, if I remember right. So he had already signed up for it. So there's a rule. What's the rule? Do you remember that he has?
So the rule that Jesse has is if you win twice, you've got to go play with the big boys. I guess if you're good, you're good, and you got to go prove yourself with the pros in the pro circuit.
So Mike's with Smokin Brethren Barbecue out of where are you from?
We're out of Ogden. We're actually kind of spaced out. I'm located up in Ogden, and my brother cooks with me. He's down in Lehigh, and then I've got a buddy that also cooks with us, and he's out in the Tooele area. So we pretty much surround the Salt Lake Valley.
Circle the wagons. So how did you get started in barbecue? Tell us where it all started.
Well, for me, I always grew up just with a charcoal grill, sometimes gas grill. I kind of took the reins from my dad because every time he tried to cook chicken, he'd burn it. Bless his heart. He'd try really hard, but I was always the go-to in the house. I was the youngest in the family, so everybody kind of didn't give me any shot at making good barbecue. But I mean, it all started there really. I got my first smoker probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Bought myself a Traeger. I've got a brother-in-law that kind of got me on the Traeger bandwagon. Me and my brother that cooks with me, John, and then my brother-in-law that's down in San Diego, we like to call ourselves Team Traeger. We've got a group text that we always text back and forth all of our creations and stuff. So that kind of got me excited just in the smoking side of barbecue. I actually took a class from Jesse Johnson from Big Johnson's Barbecue. It's been about probably 3 or 4 years ago now. He just did kind of a basic 4 meats class, the chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket, and got to talking to him after the class, and he kind of got me excited about competition barbecue, and I kind of entered the backyard circuit. Our first comp was down in the barbecue pit stop in Lehigh as well. I think there were probably like 15 to 20 teams that time. It was just me and my brother at the time. We each had just the little Pro 22s. We each had one. And we were shooting for middle of the pack. I mean, it was our first go around. There were some other guys that had been competing for a while. So we're like, whatever, we'll just finish middle of the pack. Well, that didn't happen. We ended up taking grand champion in our first comp. We won, if I remember right, it was 3rd place chicken and 1st place ribs, I believe. And we took grand champion, and we were completely mind blown. It was probably the coolest experience ever.
So was that it for you then? You were just like, I'm a barbecue competent competitor now?
Yeah, it was like my brother was kind of skeptical going in. He's like, all right, I'll see what it's all about. And when we got called, his face lit up. He was jumping up and down. He was cheering. He was hooked, and I was hooked, and we're hooked for life.
So as your experience of coming from backyard to pro, I know personally you've came up to me, you've gone up to other teams and asked a lot of questions like, what am I doing wrong? What can I do better? You know, like that. What is a good tip that you can give to a backyard pro or backyard team looking to go pro?
I think probably the biggest thing would be just come hang out with us at a comp. I think most of us, if not all of us, would welcome, any backyard cooks into our cook site. If I'm misspeaking and everybody else says he doesn't know what he's talking about, come hang out with us. We'll show you what we do. We show you our timelines, whatever. But yeah, just kind of hang around, figure out what it's all about, kind of get a feel for what teams do, kind of how they prepare to turn in all 4 meats.
Yeah. I mean, we're very vocal about cooking with us. It's just like literally show up. We have had it several times.
Yeah. Same with me. I've posted numerous times on my social media, hey, I'm cooking by myself. Who wants to come learn? And some people have taken me up on that. And some people just was like, is he for real? I don't know. So.
But you do have to be careful. There's some people out there that are just hush, hush. I mean, they lock and key that thing, and they don't tell nothing to nobody. But I mean, it comes down to one thing. If you want to learn from someone and you're somebody who wants to learn and you want to, I'm sorry, if you're somebody that wants to teach somebody, right? I can give you every single thing I do, and two things are going to happen. You're either not going to cook it as good as me or differently. Good example is we gave our chicken recipe to someone. They did it in a competition. I ate it. It wasn't good, and it was the same thing. So.
All righty. We got Jesse Johnson on the line. What's up, Jesse?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Not a whole lot. Just talking barbecue.
I'm just firing up the Timberline, the Traeger Timberline 1300. I'm going to do some chicken wings.
Oh, heck yeah. That's awesome. There's nothing better than cooking up chicken wings, man. Except for when you do an SCA event and you get last place like I did. But
DAL is never a good thing.
Right. So we're talking today a little bit. We're going to talk about backyard competitions and pro competitions. Mostly, how do you become a backyard competition team and jump into pro competitions? But first, for all those who don't know you, which is especially in this area is few, tell us a little bit about where you started in the barbecue, how you got started going.
Well, I started as a teenager. I was the Yankee up north. So whenever we traveled to see my family in the South, we'd all, Southern family, there was 9 brothers in my grandfather's family. So those uncles, since my grandfather passed away, those uncles, great uncles, would kind of rally around me and get me involved in everything they were doing, from shrimp bowls to low country bowls to cooking whole hogs. So first barbecue I ever made was a whole hog, and we've probably done now probably a couple hundred hogs so far.
And here I am working on my first.
Yeah, that is
complete
impressive.
Old school though. It's like center block, expanded metal, some galvanized steel on top. And I'm the teenager, so you got my grandfather's brothers. They're all of age, so they want to get some sleep. So who got to tend the fire all night? The teenager who wanted to play with fire. So that was me. So that's how I learned, through necessity and through convenience for my great uncle. So gave me a lot of knowledge to start things off. And then, heck, how long has it been now? 10, 12 years ago, I saw Johnny Trigg on TV doing pitmasters, and I'm like, I think I could do that. So I took a class. I got in contact with Tommy Brown, T. Everybody calls him T. Utah Smokin is his barbecue team name, but most people know him from his restaurant, which was Qing for You. One of the nicest guys on the planet. Helped me a tremendous amount to get started in the sport. And at that point in time, the Utah Barbecue Organization was doing a lot of stuff in Utah, putting on events, putting on classes, CBJ classes for the KCBS and whatnot. And so Tommy and Chris Edmonds and Matt Pelton and I'm going to lose some names and make some people mad. Doug, a lot of those guys back in the day. That's who the Utah Barbecue Organization was. So,
very nice.
So I got to go take a class from a legendary California team from Brent Walton. And if anybody knows anything about California barbecue, they would know who he is. He has since passed away, but I took his class with my baby brother, and we had drums. We're cooking on drums, but everybody else is out there. They've got their their Traegers, their offsets, their reverse flows, and we're rocking on our drums. And we don't even have a 10x10, and it's in April, and it's a little bit misty and rainy, so we didn't have a 10x10. But me and my brother didn't care. We just everybody's like, "You want to borrow a 10x10?" I said, "No, we're fine. A little bit of rain ain't never hurt nobody, ain't never killed nobody, especially the Johnson boys, So we did the class, learned a whole bunch. That was I think that was in April, and then we didn't do our first competition until October of that year.
Was that backyard? Was that a backyard event, or was it a pro event?
No, I never did any backyard events. I went straight pro.
Oh, so you went straight pro.
Yeah, it's I had been doing barbecue long enough that I knew I could make good barbecue. And I didn't know how it would stack up against the pros. but I was lucky enough to do pretty well in that competition with food in my mind that I was mad at myself. When I left in teasing, I told T, I said, hey, T, just grab all my trophies and my money and I'll hook up with you tomorrow, because I had to leave and do another event. Because if you know anything about me, I multitask all the time where I'm doing an event or doing sound jobs here, doing a demolition derby there, doing a barbecue competition here. So I had to run from Salt Lake City back up to Ogden to announce the demolition derby, and he starts blowing up my phone in the middle of the derby, and I was like, I can't answer the phone in the middle of a derby I'm announcing. So he starts texting me saying that I'd taken second place overall. I didn't know the term reserve grand champion, so I didn't know what he meant when he said that. I texted him back. I said, that's not even funny, T, to be teasing me about taking second place overall. And he goes, no, really, you took reserve grand champion in your very first competition. So I guess
that's awesome.
I was hooked after that, you know?
Right.
Like I was saying, I took 5th place in our first, and I was hooked, man. And that was what, 9 people?
I don't even think it matters what place you take in your first competition. I think you get the bug as soon as you jump out the gate.
It's true.
If you get a call, you're hooked. Let alone, you know, I got the RGC and 3 calls with food that I thought was subpar for what I normally make.
Yeah.
So that gave me pretty good hope. So, you know, here we are, you know, 10, 12 years later, I've got 7 grand championships, 18 reserve grand championships, and, you know, hundreds of calls over the years.
That's awesome. So
it's been fun.
So as you progress from a barbecue team and now you become a local promoter with Great Western Barbecue events, how awesome is it to see people like Mike come through from backyard and going pro?
Well, did you see the big old smile on my face when we're making those calls?
I know up on stage it was almost like, here's my son, Mike Peay.
Even you too, Rusty, and you too, Anthony. All you guys came up through the ranks the last couple of years, and hopefully along the way I've given you a little bit of help and a little bit of tidbits to help you make your cooks better, your competitions better. And that's the whole thing. He gave so much to me back in the day. I mean, he helped me so much and was such a great mentor for me. You know, you got to give back. You got to pass it on.
And we learned that, you know, my first pro competition was Mark Miller's Subaru. And what happened with my pork? I came over to you and I was like, man, this is nothing but hot cayenne pepper, right?
Yeah. And I'm still waiting on the check, because you won pork that time, didn't you?
Yeah, we won pork that time, and I don't think the check is going to be in the mail anytime soon.
No, it's all good. But it's being in the weeds on your own before, figuring out things, and that a lot of that has to do with being able to cook in general. If you can cook and you can make, you know, great meals out of what you have in your pantry, then when something happens when you're on site, maybe you don't have everything. That's the other part about barbecue. If something happens and you go, I don't have this item, somebody there's got it. So all you have to do is go ask somebody. Go down the road. Hey, do you might happen to have this? Would you mind if I borrowed it? And 9 times out of 10, they have it, and they're gonna borrow it to you.
Exactly.
That's the sweet thing about barbecue. The people, for the most part, I'm not gonna say it's 100%.
Have you ever forgot anything and had to ask for something?
Oh yeah, I have. So Wendover happened a few weeks ago. I had forgot a full pan to cook my brisket in. The one thing that I have to cook my brisket in. So I don't know if Rusty knows this because he was up in his hotel, but I went down to Salt City Barbecue and I was like, do you guys have an extra full pan? Like I'm an idiot. I forgot my pan. I've got the racks to cook it on, but I don't have the pan to put it in. And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. They had a big old stack of pans there. So they gave me one and
Yeah, it was like our second competition. We were at a Game Changer, and I'm like, no one's gonna have Game Changer. And I think I just mentioned it to Jesse. I got Game Changer. Come on over. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Cause I was dying. I was so nervous. And I was, those first few comps, I was a mess, man. And that happened. My whole world's crashing down around me. I'm like, no. He got him. I'm like, oh my God. And then he comes back and there's this glow around him. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's what's cool about when you first start barbecue. I don't know how many of y'all got into the barbecue backyard, but you roll in with like 8 trailers deep of equipment and you realize real quick you don't need anything except for the one thing you really do need.
And you forgot it.
Yep.
Because you're packing up for a comp and your neighbor comes over to you and goes, "Are you guys moving?" "No, just going to a barbecue competition."
No, I get that all
I've
the
got
time.
everything by the kitchen sink. Yep. So as you keep going forward and forward, the big thing is I like sharing a list that I built 8 years ago. That's my checklist. These are the things I have to have. And Mike, all you do, when I have the big trailer on site, everything's in there. I've got all the rubs I don't use, all the rubs I do use, and usually the only ones you see are the ones I don't use. And then I have several hundred pans in there too. So if you ever need a pan, bro, just holler.
Hopefully I won't need one again. I've added it to my checklist. So
yeah, that checklist is huge. Like I didn't even think about it. And when we did the comps, Jesse sent one over. I'm like, I still reference it. I think we built off of it now, but you turned it into your own. Yeah, and then I still cross reference it though. I'm looking at just in case I didn't get something. Oh, fire extinguisher, crap.
Yeah. Exactly. So speaking of your Great Western Barbecue event, we know that you throw down on a lot of local scenes throughout the summer, but I want you to break it down in a little bit about Wendover when we're trying to pull the whole West Coast into that event.
Ooh, that was this year was disappointing because normally we're at least in the 40s, if not pushing towards the end of the 40s. We've never maxed out our 50 team goal ever at that competition, and there's so much money involved out there. We've got $35,000 in prize money. There's another $9,000 in trophies. And, you get discounted on the rooms and all the other things that go in there. You get free ice, and I think next year I'm just going to buy 3 or 4 cases of kale, 3 or 4 cases of leaf lettuce, 3 or 4 cases of parsley, and let everybody go, because that's part of the struggle when you're traveling. Some of those California teams, Arizona teams, Nevada teams cruising around. It's like, where am I going to get my produce? Even though it's a minimal part of what we do, I think it offsets, and I think might be a nice little addition to next year's comp. But yeah, we only had 37 teams. Last year we had 48? No, yeah, 48 I think is what we had. So we were down 10, 11 teams. And we did have 3 teams canceled the week of, which we would have put us right at 40. But it's a trend across the nation where teams are doing less number of competitions. And
why do you think that is this year?
We've been bouncing. I belong to a Facebook forum with KCBS promoters, and there's a number of different things across the board. I think the thing that affects Wendover the most is the idiots at the American Royal having their competition in September. It's never been in September until 3 years ago, and last year we had our best number, but the year before we had our second lowest. So and because it was actually the very next week after the Wild West Shootout in Wendover, so. Frustrating.
I noticed last year at that cook or the year before, that they used Wendover as a pit stop on the way to the Royal, and that's when we probably seen our highest amount of numbers. So
no, last year was the biggest number. So the year before it was down, but because it was the next week, there was some teams that were just traveling to the Royal after that. But I think it hurts us more than it helps us. But that's a big comp. They just invested, a couple $100,000 into that parking lot to add, how many spots did they add? 24 spots with 50 amp 30 amp and two 20 amp power sources. Now, everybody knows if you go to a barbecue shop and you're pulling one of those, mega trailers or a fifth wheel or something like that, all that power, that makes your life so much easier. It makes it easy. You just pull in, plug in, and most of them just turn on their refrigerators.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff there as far as the power goes and all that stuff, man. There's a lot of that contest for me though is like my personal like royal, because I wanted to cook that one for so long. And when I got there, that was a wreck, dude. I was a wreck.
He definitely was there. I witnessed that. But what I do enjoy about Wendover is that it's in Nevada, on the Utah-Nevada border side, but it's a 24-hour town. You can always find something, like if you're sitting around at 2 a.m. and you're like, oh man, I got my pit started, I got something going on, I'm not quite tired. You can go into the casino, get you some food, stuff like that.
You also lose $400 at the poker table.
Yeah, I witnessed that.
Yeah, you can do that.
It's their biggest event of the year. So this was the 7th annual. The first year we did it, I think we only started with $20,000 or $25,000 in prize money, and had a reasonable amount of success. And in my mind, but in the casino's mind, we sold out all 3 of their hotels. So they're looking on ROI basis how successful is this event, and between a number of different folks in the casino with Peppermill, they said, well, this is by far our most successful event of the year, so that's why they've continued it. But I'm worried about 2020 because we were down so many teams, and I think the amount of people that showed up, which is their VIPs, and that they have a couple different levels of VIPs. They get different things out there. We did almost $5,000 in tokens. So that's $5,000 the casinos gave to not their highest level VIPs, but their VIPs, and they can come out and spend it with all the vendors out there. We did 5,000 just in tokens. So,
right. So that is a KCBS event. So when 2020 comes around, we just send people to the KCBS webpage to try to find out information about that cook.
No, just always just follow Great Western Barbecue Events on Facebook. We don't really, I have a website, but it hasn't been updated in a number of years. So Facebook is just a nice little tool where I can build those events, and if any event that we're doing, you can see under events on that Facebook page. And then I build in links to wherever they can sign up, whether it's through Square or through the casinos. It's just a super simple click away from getting registered.
Yeah, and I'll always be the first to sign up, so don't worry about that. But
I'll always be the last.
No, you weren't the last. Somebody came with cash on Friday.
Oh, there you go.
That was luckily, and that's the other thing that people don't realize and teams don't realize. When you wait till the last minute, I'm trying to judge how many judges I need, so we have enough certified, KCBS certified CBJs on site to have full 100% CBJs on site. That's the thing. That's the hardest part about competitions, when people sign up last minute. And, there's teams that think it's funny to sign up last minute, or they kind of, I've heard a few teams have some arrogance in their voice. And, well, I'm coming. So, well, I don't know you're coming until you sign up. There's years that you've said you're coming and then you don't show up. And I've got extra people there, and those judges are volunteers. They're actually, for Wendover, they're spending their own money to get rooms to stay there if they're going to enjoy the weekend. And if they don't get sat at a table and they're just helping, it's frustrating because the teams sometimes don't realize how hard competitions are to put on,
right. Yeah, Mike, you plan on being there again?
I think we might show up. We kind of got to hold up that pork championship, taking first place in pork.
Mike's on house money. He's not going to not show up to Wendover again.
Yeah, we're all in Colorado going, where the heck's Mike? He could pay for all of us right now.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever left Wendover with money in my pocket.
That's funny. You know what? I was so happy for Mike when he's getting those calls, but one thing that disappointed me that he kind of did shig on me a little bit was my hat.
Oh,
You know, I
Now, do
saw
your
Anthony
listeners
rocking.
know it?
I saw you
big
rocking
dome?
that big old brim. I thought to myself, you know, I got to get me one of those, and I honestly think that's what it was. It was the good
It was the
juju
hat?
from yep.
I didn't start winning until I wore it. My first time I wore it, I won a GC down in Bryan Head.
It's
that's awesome.
a big hat. It's like a huge straw hat.
It's really a cowboy version of a sombrero.
Yep, I was just gonna say it's a hybrid sombrero / cowboy hat. Here's
the thing:
awesome.
does your listeners even know what shigging is? Because you said you shigged that from Mikey.
Yeah,
do your listeners know what shigging is?
Not quite. I'm hoping that they do, but we are going to have a barbecue 101 podcast.
All right,
so
let's just tell them. Shigging is when another team or part of their team comes into your cook site with the express intent of stealing your recipes and or your cooking techniques. That's what shigging
exactly
is.
What I did.
At least he admits it.
Hey guys, do you have a pan? What's going on in that barrel over there?
Where do I get a hat?
There was a team that was that was kind of notorious. They were able to travel a lot, and there was multiple people on the team, and you know, one part of the team would get kicked out of a cook site, and then 15 minutes later, one of the other teams would show up in somebody's cook site, and they're like, "I just kicked you out of here. Get out of here." So they were notorious for shigging back in the day. So
I feel like with the internet and all that stuff, it's made it less prevalent, you know, because you could just get everything anywhere now. Back then, you literally had to go like Call of Duty, you know, and sneak in and get stuff from people, and that's how you got a lot of your ideas from.
Well, the Utah scene, I also see that we're actually more inviting. Like, come on in, let's just talk barbecue. You know, that's how this podcast started. So the Utah scene, I don't think is very secretive.
Every team is secretive to a point, but the Utah teams seem to be more open to help the other teams and help grow the sport. That's the biggest thing.
Well,
you know,
let's come back to the backyard, and I want to kind of bring Mike in a little bit and talk about. So you did the backyard stuff. So tell me what it was like going for. What was the biggest shock to you coming from, let's say, Tomato Days last year to jumping into your first official comp? When was that? What was that comp? And just kind of run me through the differences between those two. You know, doing just chicken, just ribs, jumping and adding the pork and the brisket to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing right there is just figuring out your timeline to cook 4 meats instead of just 2. You know, backyards, you show up at 6 a.m. and you've got plenty of time to just get everything prepped and ready and going, and you just turn in at 12:30, whatever. But the biggest thing is, you know, you can cook a brisket in your backyard all day long, and it's the best thing you've ever done. And because that's the only thing that you're cooking. You're solely focused on that. You're not worried about anything else.
It's done when it's done. You don't have a timeline.
Yep. You're on barbecue time. You're just doing whatever. And if you hit it on time and make all your guests happy, and if not, then they're waiting another hour or two sometimes. But with competition, that was probably my biggest thing. I don't think I slept more than 20 minutes. It was the spring fling this year. I mean, cooking on Traegers, you should be able to just set those things in, throw the meat on, go get some good sleep. I go low and slow overnight on the bigger meats, and I should be able to just rest well and get my sleep. But I was so paranoid, thinking, well, what if the power goes out? Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And it was very, very difficult for me to try and get some sleep because I was just so worried. Because I had done different practice cooks beforehand in just in my backyard, trying to cook both brisket and pork at the same time, trying to get times figured out, when to start and everything like that. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me is just trying to figure out how to time everything so everything can be just ready to go when turn-in time happens. Other than that,
I always suggest to backyard teams if they're going pro, is to do a full comp cook at home before you go to a competition. That way you can have do everything that you're going to do in a competition, but do it at home so that there's less stress. You can figure out your timeline, take lots of notes, and then build that timeline into a spreadsheet and use it on site.
Yep, absolutely. So a key thing there for me is, you just mentioned take notes. I've got a notebook every time I cook. If I cook a steak, if I cook chicken, whatever I cook, I'm writing down something in a notebook. I'm writing down what the temperature is outside, what I cooked at, what I seasoned with, what temperature I pulled the meat at. Every time I cook, I'm writing down something in reference to that cook, whether it's associated with competition barbecue or not. I'm always making notes, keeping track of everything.
Speaking of timelines, Jesse, I don't know how you do it because most of the time you're cooking for the host of the event and then also doing a competition time. I'm just telling the listeners right now, like if Big Johnson Barbecue asks you to come become a box runner, you better hit the gym like 3 weeks before the event because he pushes it to the max.
It's not that bad. You gotta have your running shoes on. Yeah. Usually I push it to the end on the timeline just because I like to send in hot food. That's kind of one of the trick. You see guys turn in, right at the beginning of the 10-minute window. And I don't want my food to sit for 10 minutes while, everybody else turns in. So that's kind of why I push it a little bit. But
so you doing all these competitions, not only being in the competitions, but putting competitions on, you see a lot of different teams coming in. What did you think is the biggest mistake a newbie makes coming into the barbecue competition world?
That's a loaded question. Well, we kind of covered one aspect of it is probably bringing too much stuff. Second one probably is what Anthony just alluded to is Mike and Anthony is doing that practice full-on competition cook. Do it on a Friday night. Start it. Do the full cook. Stay up all night or take your naps according to what you do in the competition. And then figure out, okay, brisket needs going 2 hours earlier. Do the whole seasoning, all the aspects of a cook, do it at home. Then you can work through those little snags that you might run into, then just go from there.
So what would you suggest to someone who's doing your backyard competitions and want to jump into a pro comp? What's some advice you would give someone that kind of gets the idea of it, has done those two meets maybe a few times in a competition, but is thinking, all right, next year I'm a pro. What are you telling someone like that?
Just do that practice cook. That's the biggest thing. Make sure that you're dialing in those flavors. Don't get too overwhelmed with your flavor profiles, because there was a couple of years that I was chasing flavor profiles all over the place and just kept not doing well. And when I went back to my normal stuff, things kind of worked their way out. I just went back to my normal recipes, normal cook times, wasn't chasing the purple cows, like some teams suggest you need to have out there. You need to have something that cooks properly. That's the number one thing when you're cooking barbecue for a competition. Make sure your doneness is on point. You can't really not have your doneness right and do well. I mean, this year has been case in point. Is we had at the Traeger Northern Utah World State Championships, I thought I made really good pork. I didn't get any sevens, which normally if you don't get any sevens, you're going to do pretty well. Well, I took I did DAL. I was last because of the teams that were there. There was 6 or 7 teams that could win the thing just by showing up. And that came to fruition because there was a bunch of barbecue assassins out there, and but you got to get your feet wet. You got to hop in there full bore. Just go to town, go cook a comp. Hold on. Excuse me, guys. I'm seasoning up my, chicken wings on the pit right now as we talk.
Gotcha.
I would just say hop in and go. Don't worry. I mean, if you feel like you need to cook backyards, do it. But I wouldn't hesitate to go pro. Just to get your feet wet, figure it out, and start doing it. The biggest thing is doing it. Once you start doing it, you'll get to hang out with other pros. You can pick their brain, and even though there's some local teams that kind of poo-poo on the local comps, I'm sorry, there's some assassins at those local comps because somebody made the comment to Crooked Pigs about, hey, yeah, it's nice that you got back-to-back reserve grand champions, but who was really there? There were some assassins there.
Well, they showed them. They just GC'd down in Pork and Hops in Grand Junction. They crushed.
I know. So 3 GCs this year. And I think they have an RGC.
They do.
So, yeah, I don't care. You cook. There is some downright assassins at local competition. So you've got because, and I think it's part of the internet too, is what you said, Rusty. The information is readily available to everybody. So if you want to learn how to do really good competition barbecue, go watch some videos. Go take some classes. I think that's the biggest benefit is go take some classes and learn what other competitive barbecue pitmasters do. And if you can pick up, like I go sit in on some of the Traeger classes still to this day. Because if I can pick up if I can shig one thing that can help me in a barbecue competition, that was more than worth my time. Plus I get to hang out with my friends,
I agree with you.
Go take classes and then study on the internet.
I agree 100% with you. But one thing that I do notice that a lot of like new level teams do is they're chasing, like you said, that purple cow. You have to run with your recipe more than once before you change it. Because some people get discouraged. Man, I got 12th place in ribs. And then they're like, well, I'm going to change it. Then the next competition they hit. And then third, fourth one that they're bottoming out because they're making so many tweaks. My personal opinion is run with the recipe for, even if it's just ribs, stick with ribs as one recipe and then you can play with the others. Just kind of work it out. Don't change too big.
Oh, that's the biggest part of it. If you're going to change something, change one thing. Change one thing. And then you have a baseline to go from. Well, I changed this and we did better. Okay. The next competition, you may want to stay with it, or you change one more thing. But then you know what's going on. You have a baseline instead of jumping all over the place.
Yeah, and I would suggest the route we went was taking the class, taking classes. And Mike mentioned in the podcast earlier before he got on that he took your class, and that's where he got started doing competition barbecue. And I went out. I spent the $600. I looked at the KCBS Team of the Year, so that's them. I'm gonna go take their class. Paid $600. Flew out to Kansas City, and it's benefited me so much. So instead of being that team that's like 3-4 years down the road, finally hitting, we were able to kind of hit the ground running, and have a better baseline for what we wanted to do. And, we've enjoyed the process a lot more, I feel. So I would suggest classes all day.
I agree with that. Cause like I said earlier too, I started off with an R&R cook class, at the home expo. So classes are big.
Yeah. You're not going to learn everything in a class unless you're taking it from a pitmaster that shows you 100% of what he does right now. Like Myron Mixon, he's teaching in his class what he did 5 years ago. But Johnny Triggs' class, he's going to teach you exactly what he's doing right now, because his mentality is, I'm going to show you everything that I do, but you're not going to outcook me because I'm Johnny Triggs.
And I've been doing it since 1992.
Right.
Yep. So I think because I took a class before my first comp from a California Team of the Year that would have been a California Team of the Year for like 10, 12 years. He was really good. And it was just the basics. It's just, here's some things. We didn't actually get recipes from him. So he helped us build our own rubs that day and all the things. And, I've built out where I use my own rub on my pork that I've used for years and had really good success. But it took 2-3 years of tweaking that rub till I got it to it was right. And we were lucky enough to take, reserve grand champion in pork at the World Food Championships in Vegas a few years ago. And that was, and that, you know what? There's how mistakes become cooking techniques, because that was a 2-day cook. You had 2 different meat inspections. So my pork was frozen solid, headed to Vegas. Not a big deal. It's the 2nd day cook. Well, when I pulled out the pork for the meat inspection, knock on wood, it was solid as a rock. So I had to figure out how to get it thawed out in a safe manner and still get it, injected or brined or whatever my plan was. Well, I set it on a table with those great big old 5-gallon blue Ziploc bags. 2 pork butts in one, 2 pork butts in the other, because they were frozen together, and a gallon of apple juice and my rub in them. And I kept moving them around and switching them around. And then I don't think I separated them until probably about 9 p.m. I finally got them to separate, and I left them out there and I put them on at midnight, and that mistake became a cooking technique. So now you guys know what I do with my pork. It gets brined. It gets brined as long as I possibly can with my rub, and then seasoned about an hour out before I put it on the pit. And with my proprietary Big Johnson's barbecue rub, that will probably be in, the barbecue pit stops sometime spring next year.
Oh, heck yeah.
Nice. Thanks for that tip.
Yeah, you told us our first comp. It was our very first comp. You were rolling by and you're like, yeah, man, you're telling us a story about I think it was that one story. And you're like, sometimes your mistakes become your standard, and that's nothing's more true than that. That's happened to us several times at this point. We're like, oh crap, oh wow, that worked, didn't it? All right. So mistakes,
write it down. Write it down and try to do it again.
Mike, have you had any mistakes?
I probably have way too many to even go into. Being a rookie team, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to have mistakes going in. And I think, being a rookie team that only competed, I think 4 times this year. If I could give any advice to somebody that's looking to jump into the pro circuit, do it next year. You're going to make mistakes. Don't try and do it for the money. The money's great, but do it to have fun. That's all any of us are about. It's all about having fun. It's all about getting out, just talking barbecue with a whole bunch of people, most of the time sitting in a parking lot all night long. just talk barbecue, try and teach people that you like to cook your chicken medium rare for turn in, things like that. You just totally pull each other's legs, but
reverse jigging.
Yeah, I that's my favorite part about the barbecue competition. Actually, I honestly hate turn-ins, but when you get there early, you can sit there and talk to your friends, go to dinner with them. It's the experience of hanging out with your barbecue family. They're on the same level as you.
And everyone likes to talk barbecue, and that's all we do. Sit around and just chalk shop, and it's super fun. And just coming into meeting all these people so far, I know so many people, like talking to Jet, all these guys, man, just Matt and Trevor Jager and all those guys, man. They're just tons of people that we've met in a short time that consider friends, and it's a whole new world. It's really cool, a really, really cool thing to get into. If you're into barbecue, if you're into comps, if you're thinking about it, jump in, make those mistakes, fall and skid your knees. Do pro. I would say that I've done both. I would say just jump in, man. Just do the pro comps.
I think I try to tell teams that all the time is yep, the backyard's fun, but you're only cooking 2 meats, and it's a 1-day experience where pro teams, you get 2 days, you get to hang out with the pro teams, you get to talk barbecue, and just, if you're just hanging out with guys, you can glean so much information. Ask simple questions, don't get into the recipe aspect of things, but there's teams that will help you all day long at a pro barbecue competition. And that's the thing. Rusty, you cooked backyard. When did you turn pro? You cooked backyard at the first year Salt Lake County Fair, correct?
Yeah, we did the Salt Lake County Fair last year, and then Tomato Days last year. That was the 2 we did.
In 18?
Yeah, in last year, 2018. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And that's when, because you should have seen the blood rush out of Mike's face when I announced, "Hey, here's your GC and newest pro team."
Yeah, I still remember that. There was tears in my eyes, and I was scared because you know you were kicking me out of the backyard.
There were smiles on your face and fear in your eyes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I remember being scared for him, man. I ain't lying. I'm like, oh crap! I hope we don't win.
There's a couple teams out there that will wait the 2-year period and come back into the backyard competition. I'm like, why do you do that? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Once you've gone pro, just stay pro and cook pro and go have fun and do the best you can. And, you know,
yeah, I mean, our backyard stuff is unrecognizable. I mean, we learned everything in pro, literally everything. We were watching Malcolm Reed how to barbecue right in our backyards, you know, and it's good stuff, but we are so far. And just in Grand Junction, you know, downtime, we're in Crooked Pigs with Matt and Dave. We're literally swapping recipes. What do you do with your pork? What do you do this? Okay, I need to work on money muscle. How you cutting your money muscle out? And he's like, this. And he's asking us what we put in our ribs. And, you know, and we do that with Anthony. We've done that with everybody. You know, we can sit there and just talk shop and we do ask those questions. Like, what are you doing here? Yeah. And they'll tell you. And I've learned, you know, we had our recipes that we came in with, but I've also adjusted based on what I've learned from all the teams. They're so willing to share. And if you're a new team, I think for me, it's cool because I want to see you succeed.
You're right.
And if I can help you, I'll give you everything, man.
Right.
I'll lay it out because I know I'm going to cook it different than you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then I get to see you and it's benefiting me because, you know, I want to, you know, next time it's just more people you get to hang out with and it makes this funner, makes a bigger family. And it's something that I want to be a part of and I want to grow that. So if you ever see us at a barbecue competition, man, you see some other Smokin brethren, you see Big Johnsons, you see Crooked Pigs, you see all those guys, man, just roll up and say, hey, I need help with this. And they will be there for you 100%.
And how good does Matt Hansen's boxes look? And he shares them. He shows you.
Yeah, he does.
Here's my GC winning boxes. Go ahead and try to beat me. I love that. Crooked Pigs, he's really stepped up the last couple of years. And it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. You know what I mean?
I will fully admit that I shigged his box layout for pork, and it has won us back-to-back pork.
He mentioned that, I ain't gonna lie.
That's awesome. Well, cool, Jesse. Is there anything else you want to plug in? Get your name in there. Tell people where to follow you. All that fun stuff.
I'm all over the social media. Just anything that I do is at Big Johnson's Barbecue, and then when we do stuff, I usually have everything across all my different formats. Where if you follow Big Johnson's Barbecue, you're probably following Great Western Barbecue Events and also Utah Barbecue Organization. You know, we still try to put everything on through there. And for 2020, hopefully Wendover's going to be in play. I'm trying to solidify the dates. We are going to be doing a KCBS event in June. So the Traeger Norute Barbecue Championships will be it will probably kick Kanab out of the auto. And because this will be, if and when we hit 15 teams, it will be the only comp in the state. So I think I'm not sure on the rules with KCBS, and the Jack, but I think it will become the only qualifier for the Jack for that time cycle.
That's awesome. So people got to pay attention to that Utah cook to get yourself a chance to get to the Jack.
Yeah, and we're probably going to have a few less of the local comps because of some real estate issues that we're having with some of the stores that we've been having them at. So I'm trying to figure out a spring fling. We might do it in March this year. So we do March, June, and then August will be the 3 comps that I'll be putting on next year besides any backyards that we do. And then that way, because I still want to go out and cook as a competitive team. And, you know, I wanted to hit Grand Junction, but I had a family function that got in the way. And then I was planning on Boise, but I can't. I have the state fair that I'm announcing, you know, the Demolition Derby. So it's kind of, my schedule is so hard. My weekends are so booked up. It's just, I want to go cook more competitions. And I was sad to see Cache Valley go away. That was going to be a local KCBS comp that I go cook in instead of, because the rules with the KCBS, if you're the promoter, you can't cook your own competition. They changed that a few years ago, and luckily I did well the last year. I've never won pork there, Michael, but I got third place. I still got one of the big trophies, and then that year was the year that I was the high rollers People's Choice winner that year. So I got a couple of those cool trophies from Wendover. So
yeah, it's really too bad you haven't, because that's probably the greatest feeling, is to take first place in any category, walk up on stage. I mean,
yeah,
just kind of go through my emotions. You know, you hear they start calling it 15 and they go all the way up to 5. And then, you know, I just kind of go kind of auto tune, just tune it out. There's no way I'm top 5. And all of a sudden it's like first place, and it's seriously the greatest feeling in the world.
Right. I'm with you.
I would have crapped my pants, so I'm glad I didn't, because I'd been hella embarrassing because that was on TV.
Yeah. Well, I remember my first GC with your events, Jesse, and you knew it like right away. You started pointing at me, and I was like, no, this ain't gonna happen. This ain't. And you're like bobbing your head like, yes, it's gonna happen. And then that happened, and it was awesome. You know, it's kind of, you go into this blackout state. Like, did this just really happen? You know, like
right.
It takes a couple hours to kick in.
Well, the one that kind of threw me off a few years back was when Roger and Rod threw a competition in Salt Lake, and it was when there was some animosity between some of the teams, and I just like, you know what, I'm just going to go cook it. And Vince from Rhythm and Q came over. We were chatting, and Cameron from I just lost the name of his restaurant. What's Cam's restaurant in Port Provo?
Bam Bam.
Bam Bam. Yeah, geez Louise. Yeah, Bam Bam came over. We're just chatting, and I said, I just said, I just wanted to be part of the solution and get Utah barbecue back going and back on the map. And, that's why I showed up. And I said, and in reality, I want to win a competition when you guys are here. Swamp Boys was there. There was a lot of players at that competition. And Anthony, the same thing happened to me. Vince starts pointing at me during calls because I had missed one of the calls. I didn't get a top 10 call in one of the categories, but I won ribs, and then he starts pointing at me. And then I got a call in pork. No, I didn't get a call in pork, and I got a call in brisket, and he's pointing at me. I said, there's no way I didn't get a call in the one category. And then they called the GC, and it's I had a few GCs before that, but because of the level the competition was there, it was kind of a different level of it, joy in your heart when you do that kind of stuff. And he said, he came up to me and said, I told you so. Because he's the wizard when it comes to figuring out who's going to win. And he's like, you took 11th place in the one call you didn't get, didn't you? I said, I don't know. And he was dead on the nuts that we took 11th place in the one category that we didn't get a call in to win our that GC, and that was kind of fun. Swamp Boys took our GC. Swamp Boys is a team out of, people should know that they're a pretty big team out of Florida that was up in town teaching a class and here competing. It was kind of fun. So
nice. Well, cool, Jesse. Well, thanks for letting us steal some time from you, and hopefully those chicken wings that should be done by now.
Slow and low, baby. No, going hot and fast on the Timberline 1300. You gotta love to be able to go up over 500 degrees on those things. That's what's the thing is the technology has completely changed the game over the last 10 years, though. Too, you didn't have the quality of grills and pits that we have available. I mean, I cook. People get scared when I roll out Little Red because Little Red has made me so much money over the years. Little Red is an offset cooker from Pits and Spits, but as competitive cooks, your mentality is a huge part of how you do your cook. So if you can set it and forget it and get a couple hours of sleep, 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours of sleep at a competition, you're so much better the next day. And like some of you guys that are going hot and fast, fire up your grill till 5 in the morning. So you slept all
6
night.
6 in the morning, 5:30. We're sleeping, bro. That's the best.
Well,
6.
yeah. Well,
I just got me. That's a big, huge help. If you studied how to do hot and fast and you can dial that in, that's a great way to go. but the reliability of these, Traeger is the king at any barbecue competition this nowadays, because in the pellet cooker world, just because everybody knows that the quality that's out there and the product that it could deliver is spot on with Traeger. So, and I just new drum. I can't wait to try a little hot and fast, maybe catch up to you guys.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. It comes to drums, hot and fast. It comes to Traegers. I've seen them all win. I mean, every single time. And it's just how you cook it. You have to adjust your recipes accordingly. But I mean, you can win whatever with whatever if you just know how to cook it. That's the bottom line. There's no like, oh, you're using a Traeger. There's none of that, man.
That's what you, in the very beginning, though, you heard that. You're cooking on a pellet cooker? What? And
I think it's a level of barbecue maturity at that point, Like, I think new people, they're like, well, I use this. Like, okay, well, one day when you figure it all out, let me know and we'll talk barbecue, but have a good day.
You know what T told me a long time ago? Tommy Brown, one of my favorite people in the barbecue world. I hope he's been struggling. He had a stroke issue last year, and hopefully he's getting better, because I love that guy to the nth degree. You know, he told me a long time ago, he goes, Jesse, if you can cook on anything. So, I proved it over the years, from going from barrels to offsets to Traegers, and everything in between. If you can cook, you can cook. So if you're a cook and you know how to cook, come out and do some barbecue and have some fun, meet some great people. That's part of the joy of barbecue competitions, is hanging out with really good people and having fun, sharing a libation, telling a couple lies, doing some reverse chicken, just having fun. That's the biggest thing. If you're not having fun, go do some knitting classes.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for all your time, Jesse, and we will be getting a hold of you shortly.
Thanks,
right,
man. Really appreciate it.
No worries, guys.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. See ya.
Bye. Man, Jesse knows a lot. He knows quite a bit. Mike, what did you take in on that?
He's been in this barbecue game much longer than any of us. I'm sure if you added up the years, he's probably been in it longer than the three of us combined. So, I mean, he is so full of knowledge, and I will attest to the fact that he is willing to share just about whatever you ask him. I remember walking Wendover last year. This is when we found out we had to go pro. Went up to him and talked to him. He was running his vending stuff, so he was a little bit busy. But I mean, even then, when he was in the middle of cooking something like 50 briskets and I don't even know how many pork butts, but even while he was doing that, he was willing to take just a little bit of time and answer a couple of easy questions that we had for him. So if there's anybody that I think has grown the Utah barbecue community, I think he's probably the man.
I say at this moment in time, he's probably the biggest. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
So let's just kind of wrap up a little bit here with you, Mike, and talk a little bit about more, just kind of a closing thing. So, like, kind of to recap again, you started in the backyard, you humped that out for a minute. You were kind of forced to go pro. I remember that moment too. And I was there and he's like, oh, and I remember looking at him going, oh man. Then he went into the backyard or the pro bit, and you did, it's just almost like you got better each time. Then he went out to Wendover, 37 teams, 4th place overall, if I remember right.
Yeah. 4th place overall.
I mean, we were all ecstatic. We're like, what? I mean, I felt like, I was talking to everybody. I was talking to Anthony. I was talking to Trevor. I was talking to Mike. It's like, or Matt was like, we all won kind of, it felt like we all kind of won, cause like the guy coming up and now, winning that thing.
Well, exactly. That's how Utah barbecue is, when one of us wins, we all win. Right.
So just kind of when you going out that whole journey for you, just touch on it a little bit and just throw any kind of experience you might want to give someone. I know a bunch of people I talk to a lot, they're really considering that jump into the pro bit. And, I know we've talked about it a lot here, but maybe just kind of give your finishing touches on what you think. What would you tell that person if they're sitting here with us today?
You can't win if you don't enter. I mean, that is just the answer. I mean, you've just got to do it. I think regardless of if we got kicked out of the backyard circuit or not, I think we would have gone pro this year just because, it's taking it to that next level. I mean, if you've cooked 1 or 2 backyard cooks, there's no reason for you to continue cooking backyard. You learn enough about turn-in times and how to hit those, how to build some pretty basic boxes. Your level of growth is going to be inhibited if you stay in the backyard. If you make that jump and you go to pro, hands down, I can almost guarantee that you are going to learn so much. You're going to cook the best barbecue of your life because you're just going to learn so much because the pressure is going to be on you. You're going to make those decisions when you have to, and it just comes. Like it's so amazing at how inexperienced you think you are, and then you get in the heat of the moment, and it just happens.
It's like Wayne Gretzky says, you miss every shot you don't take. So,
Yep.
but so, okay, guys, that was our episode about doing our backyard to, pro to just competition talk in general. So we'd like to thank Mike for coming out with us and sitting down with us in the podcast. We'd like to thank Jesse Johnson for taking some time from his busy chicken wing day. No, I'm starving. And again, so we'll see you next time. And from there on, guys, keep cooking.